I would like to, I would like to have the recording started. And also, I would like to ask kindly to the participants to mute the mic so as the progress of the seminar itself can be conducted smoothly. And the Q&A session will be conducted by the end of this presentation. Meanwhile, I urge you to scan the QR code that I show you. Are you able to see my screen?
Sure.
Yeah, so please scan the QR code because that QR code will lead you to a Google form in which you need to sign in with whatever account you have. Do not collect your email, but if you want me to answer your questions when the questions may not be addressed here because of the limited time, then please provide your email. So yeah, you do not have to worry that your privacy will be invaded by me collecting your emails because I'm not collecting your emails. Okay, so does anyone need more time to scan the QR code? If you cannot scan the QR code, I already provided the link also in a chat, Zoom chat. Probably Bu Amalia can repost my message.
Yes, I will repost it like in 30 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, because I believe that those who just admitted, they wouldn't be able to see the chat from the previous one. Okay, so perfect. Let's start then. So today, what we are going to have is a topic that is burning, especially in the country that has a lot of natural disasters, and especially for companies that depend on natural disasters. Because nowadays we have what we call the task force that are related to nature disaster financial disclosure. And while they are still developing their requirements, their standards, and their way of developing the standards itself, the recommendations are already there. It's out there. And companies that depend on natural resources already started adopting it. So what we have here is an organization that urge companies that depend on natural resources to care for the natural laws or possibilities that can impact their viability to conduct their business. So that's the idea. But then people are asking questions how exactly we are going to achieve this. Now, this session, actually, Bu Amalia reminded me, Dr. Dewi, you will start from introduction first, right? You are not jumping into the scenario itself, right? My answer is yes, but I also recognize the high probability that some of you, or maybe even all of you, actually already knew about this. So I moderate the material. The material is somewhere from introduction a bit and gradually go into the intermediate level and finally reach the natural disaster scenario using the AI and the kind of AI that we are going to discuss. We will discuss it later. Okay, so let's start. So these are the materials that we are going to discuss, like I described just now. We'll start with the introduction, and we will discuss a bit about the TNFD links to TCFD, which is the climate scenario for financial disclosure. And we will discuss what is meant actually by the natural disaster scenario that's related also to climate scenario based on TNFD, not TCFD. And then we will discuss about how we can use AI for the climate natural disaster scenario. And I will show you also a little bit how we can actually do it. Now, when we are talking about TNFD, probably you start asking, or maybe all of us still asking of the reason why we have the TNFD, why we already have TCFD outside there. Aren't they all about climate? So probably all of you will nod by now. I cannot see all of you, but I think all of you will smile and nod by now. But really, there are similarities and also differences that we need to have common ground on this, so that when we're discussing the topic itself, we will have the same understanding of why we do what we do and discuss the scenario in the way that we are doing during this seminar. Now, in general speaking, we need TNFD because we cannot deny that there are environmental challenges that will threaten our environment. And no matter how far you think your businesses from nature dependency nature of the businesses itself, you will realize that by the end of the day, you still need at least one resources from the environment. I will challenge you, if there is no business that doesn't need water, tell me if any business can run without water, without access to water. I don't think it's possible, right? Even your employee needs it. So all of your employees at least will need water. So you cannot just take it for granted that as long as our national water system is there, then we don't need to care. Our business doesn't depend on natural resources. It's a wrong thinking, because by the end of the day, everybody chip in into whatever disasters that we are creating on this earth. So that's the idea. Now, so what we need is a change of mindset that there are growing nature-related risks that can endanger businesses, no matter how far they are from the dependency to nature. For example, even banks used to think that, or financial institutions, they used to think that we are not related to that. We don't depend on nature, but don't forget that the financing itself, much of it will go to companies that depend on natural resources. So these kind of codependencies will also create co-responsibilities then to prevent Earth for degrading further until we cannot live in it. And we always have to remember that we always have one Earth only. We don't have second chance. I know that outside there, they are talking about how about if we reheat the surface of the moon and create a livable environment. But that's a long shot, and it's exploratory. We don't know yet how it actually will affect the Earth itself and the viability of the people to stay in a longer term in the space. But it is a possibility. Don't kill new science just because it doesn't sound viable right now. But it's a long shot, and by the end of the day, we still want to live in Earth. Earth has everything. It's there already for us. Then why don't we take care of it? We are the stewards of Earth. So with this kind of a change in mindset, many companies already started to grapple into how they can contribute into conserving nature, and also into calculating into how nature will actually affect their businesses, especially when they are talking about natural disasters, the loss of natural resources. So they used to do whatever they think as correct, which is okay, nothing wrong in that. But by the end of the day, when they start publishing their efforts, we need to ensure there is not an oxymoron. There is not a greenwash. And so there is a need to standardize, to have a transparent reporting. But when I said standardize here, I need all of you to remember that I do not say that it is a one-size-fits-all approach of standardizing. Later, this principle will be more apparent when we are discussing more about the TNFD. And in terms of the stakeholders, the communities affected by natural disasters, and even the more direct stakeholders, like even the customers, the employees of the companies itself, they start to wonder, shouldn't we do something about this? So there is an increased demand from stakeholders on this. And that will intensify the action to protect nature, to protect the environment. And even if we cannot protect it because some parts of nature is the act of God, we can put it that way, we still have to be able to connect what happened in the environment with the viability of our businesses, or the viability and livability of the environment for the community that depend on companies too. So this thinking is not a local thinking, it's a global thinking. If you are familiar with the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, in which I'm quite sure you are, and you will see the alignment of this thinking with the Sustainable Development Goal, especially when it is related to alleviation of poverty, whatever kind of poverty, because human activities, remember, is always related to the environment, no matter how far you think you are from the environment. And also, by the end of the day, the environment itself must be represented by, ironically, us, humans. So it's a cycle, chicken and egg problem that we need to keep revisiting and keep reinventing ourselves so that we can be good stewards for the earth. Now, if you are wondering about how exactly the risks related to nature will impact financial stability, we discussed shortly just now on how the loss of resources, natural resources, will impact the viability of companies to conduct their businesses. And by the end of the day, when they cannot conduct their businesses, then they cannot return the capital. And if they have financing for any financial institutions, then financial institution cannot collect back what they land or invest in, if it is an investment that they did to the company. So it's a vicious cycle that nobody can deny it, actually. It's not just about being idealistic. It's simple economics. I would put it that way. So the problem that we are facing is not just by principle, but it's a very pragmatic problem. It's real. And I already mentioned before that when we are talking about being able to standardize the disclosure of the efforts done by companies or any organizations, we need to remember that it is not one size fits all kind of approach standardization, but it is more to principle based, in which, yes, in the indicators of the disclosure, the TNFD already provided how you can calculate or how you should present your quantitative aspects of your variables, but it doesn't mean that you got to, or an organization need to disclose everything. It doesn't mean that. It will still return to materiality. Now, if anyone doesn't understand materiality and environment, you can just post the questions and later I will check into it. And if anyone cannot previously scan the QR code, I think you can ping Ibu Amalia so that you will have the link for that. So returning to the TNFD itself, basically TNFD already provided the metrics for disclosing the nature-related aspects that can impact the financial stability of an organization. I'm not going to discuss in detail about this because I know that first, most probably all of you already knew about the TNFD. Second, the resources are public. You can always download it from TNFD website. And if you have a questions, and if you think that you have the time to search which part that you want to ask me, you can just post it using the Google form that I provided. And if we don't have time to discuss it now, I will still answer it, providing you provide also your email for me to answer. Now, returning to our discussion, this standardization will also not applicable in any way possible if there is no increased demand from the stakeholders to pressurize the organizations that are being held accountable as the users of the environmental resources. And when we talk about stakeholders, the kind of stakeholders that really can enforce their needs will be the investors and the regulatory bodies. Now, that kind of involvement should incentivize the action to have more organizations to meet regulatory requirements or at least the expectation of the stakeholders, other stakeholders, the investors, for example. So when we are talking about investors, we are talking about the kind of investors that understand the relations between nature resources loss, and financial stability. If we are talking about investors that only cares about give me the bottom line and I do not care about how you actually reach that bottom line, then there will be no such demand from this kind of investors, not until the company itself is in the brink of bankruptcy because the resources, the natural resources that the company depends on is depleted. But that will be too late, right? But we cannot deny that we still have those kind of investors around. I would say it is our duty to share our opinions and thinking without being too much judgmental, because by the end of the day, everyone will have learning curve. And it's not an easy understanding to move from profit-oriented investment to socially and environmentally responsible investment. Okay, so I will just continue to our next slide, which is about the relations between TNFD and TCFD. So both actually aimed on environmental risk. That's how they are related to one another. And both aim to enhance transparency and accountability as related to the disclosures that include environmental risks. So that's the most apparent link between TCFD and TNFD. But to be more specific, the key links between these two organizations will be first related to the goals. Their goals to integrate the environmental risk into financial reporting. And just to remind you, which I believe that a lot of you already understood, but just to refresh your memory and be in a common ground, environmental risk relations to financial reporting is defined by the ability of the environment to support the businesses of companies. And once again, no matter how far you think you are from being dependent dependent on the environmental resources, you'll be very surprised that you actually still depend on natural resources. Just like what I said before, financial institution or even companies, service companies, they are far away, like universities, for example, far away from the natural resources dependency. But by the end of the day, if they are natural disasters, the students cannot come. That's first. Second, even if there are no natural disasters, the universities still depend on water to run as a place where people will have an activity for maybe 8 hours or even 12 hours per day. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. And another key links between TNFD and TCFD is the support for the global sustainability goals like the SDG. So both of them will declare the key parts that they really connect into the sustainable development goals, the SDGs. When we talk about the focus area of TCFD and TNFD, TCFD itself will address primarily, and the language itself will use climate change directly. And it primarily will be connected to the physical risks as related to extreme weather events and transition risks as related to probably a shift to low carbon economy and regulatory shifts, while the TNFD simply focus on nature loss. It's natural disasters, it's there. And so what are our scenarios? There is loss there, we know. And so how will this kind of loss impact our businesses? So I will say that these two frameworks are actually complementary. I wouldn't say that they are on top of one another, they simply complementary. So one, you can put it as one looking from the left side, one looking from the right side, and so it becomes a whole view in seeing how the environment can impact the viability of businesses. Okay, let me check a bit the Google form. Okay, I haven't see anything. I will refresh it later. But if you have a question, don't hesitate to post it from now. It doesn't have to wait until the end of the presentation itself, because it will take a while to refresh and everything and randomly answer your questions to see which questions will fit into the remaining time of the seminar itself. Now, if you are already on the common ground of the TNFD, about TNFD and its relation to TCFD, then now let's start with the scenario of the natural disasters based on TNFD itself. So the scenario itself will actually look into the degradation of the environment ecosystem. To be specific, on the loss of the biodiversity, combined with natural disasters that can affect business operations. When business operations are affected, it means the economic activity of businesses will also stop or at least disrupted. When those are disrupted, then the financial stability will be degraded. Then the long-term value creation in terms of the not just money, not just financially, but also social and environmental related values will also degraded, as the companies and the related stakeholders will not be able to fulfill what they would like to fulfill when they are doing their activities in the environment itself. So I hope that makes sense. And with this kind of thinking, TNFD set the design characteristics. Now, this design characteristic is interesting because this also the kind of design that put TNFDs in a different way in seeing issues from TCFD. So first and foremost, the exploratory nature of the scenario. So in TCFD, you will see that the set for the mitigation of climate change is there, 1.5 degree Celsius. It's there. And from there, people will go backward and see how they can meet the target. So it is more to a prescribed nature, which is normative. But TNFD sees the issues as exploratory. It means TNFD opens the possibilities that whatever it is happened and happened. It's in the past. Then how are we going to mitigate that? And then we explore the possibilities. It doesn't mean that we cannot predict. We are supposed to be able to predict, but there are also parts of the nature that is beyond the control of human beings, or maybe beyond the control, at least beyond the control of the stakeholders of that certain environment, because it might be impacted by the more regional disasters. Put it simply, like Jakarta, when the higher ground around Jakarta flooding, then for sure we will see flooding in Jakarta, although it's not really raining in Jakarta. So we will see that. So that's the simplest example of that. So no matter how people in Jakarta would like to preserve nature, but if the environment or if the cities and towns around Jakarta will not do that, then the impact will still there. So realizing this, TNFD thinks that, okay, instead of starting from the normative way of setting our targets and scenarios, let's start with the explorative nature, in which we start with what we have, and then we branches into possibilities on how we are going to mitigate the risk. So anyway, if you have questions, you just post it. So that is the first characteristic of TNFD scenario. The second one is related to the qualitative variables about the storylines. So TNFD, qualitative scenario storylines, is directed to allow quantification. So it's not something that people can put it as qualitative. We do A and we will. It's not going to be like that. We do A and we oversee or we foreseen that certain liter of water will be preserved, for example. So it leads to targeted quantification. So there is no such thing as we do and will. There is no such thing. Now the third one is related to the approach itself in building the scenario. It doesn't have to be, even after the materiality analysis done, that an organization already determined which part of the environment will be most related or most most important for the organization to mitigate in terms of the loss or disasters, because that will affect directly the businesses. It doesn't mean that organizations will need to embrace everything and report everything. It can be in a building block. So it can be in steps, in stages, if you want to put it as stages. Now, this building block approach will allow a lot of organizations to start adopting TNFD and adapting the elements of variables that can contribute into nature loss or natural disasters. So this is the thing that is interesting, because it is guaranteed there. It is stated outside, it's stated on the table. They put it on the table. You can start from small. You don't have to start big. So even a very small company can start. Why not? Even if you say that I'm using only one natural resources. I feel like I'm too small for that. You can start. It is in a block form in terms of building the scenario. So do not imagine that the scenario should be very complicated. It can start from the simple one. And the next one is that the scenario design is centered on uncertainties, physical and transition risks. These are the uncertainties. Now, this sounds like TCFD. My answer is yes. TCFD also have physical and transition risks, right? Yeah, TNFD also have, but the approach of thinking is, once again, is different in building the scenario. TCFD is more normative way of building scenario analysis. TNFD is more to the explorative way in building the scenario. Now, if you have a questions about these two approaches of scenarios, then you can just pause it. But what I need you to understand is that whatever approach that an organization choose to start with in terms of the in terms of designing scenarios of a natural disaster based on TNFD, it can be customized as long as there is transparency on how the values and also the variables are collected, and also there is a continuity in it. And if the assumption change, why change? So that's the main idea. Now the next one is being versatile or flexible and adaptable. So TNFD already put it in the table that an organization can always revisit their scenario depending on the change assumptions that they use as the scenario. So this also means that each organization can have their own scenarios, even though they are in the same industry. Because it really depends. Why? Because it really depends on where they are. Mining companies, maybe specific parts of the mining. Well, even if they are in the same locations, but are they really using the same natural resources? The same proportion? Very unlikely. So TNFD is saying that you don't have to follow one another. This is not the kind of scenario that you think you can put it as one size fits all. And there is no such thing that I am better than another in terms of the how many variables that the organizations actually disclose. There is no such thing. It's all about what are material variables, critical variables as related to the businesses, and how are you going to present it based on what you actually do. So that's the thing. There is no one size fits all model. So in this way of not one size fit all approach, it means organizations can also, or businesses can also open their doors for other scenarios. For example, the TCFD part of scenario as related to environment, and other tools, even if you're familiar with the LCA, the life cycle analysis, that can be related to climate and also nature disaster scenario analysis too. So the doors are opened for different tools and approaches to be integrated with the scenario analysis based on TNFD. And to be fair to TCFD, they do the same thing too. It's just that the approach, one normative, one explorative. So this complementary nature of the of TNFD when building the scenario designed, the scenario analysis will allow medium and long-term insights generation for nature-related dependencies. Why? Put it this way, and to be honest, not all tools are fully developed. A lot of tools that we have right now are actually exploratory also by nature, if it is not experimental, in terms of the calculations, in terms of the application on the field. So they allow this kind of changes to happen. It's okay if you report changes as long as the assumptions that are changed are transparently included and disclosed, and how you actually recalculate the impact of the changes to your financial stability are actually also transparently disclosed. So that's the thing about being able to allow medium and long-term time horizon to generate insights. And we must also remember that when we talk about the insights related to nature disasters and nature loss, nature resources loss, there are also companies that can also have opportunities in terms of purely risk as related to these happenings in the environment. So for example, excuse me, for example, a mining company, coal, for example, already have the deposits depleted, fine, but at the same time, because the government really push into renewable energy, and they are sitting on a large area that enable them to harvest the solar energy and redistribute it, then it's a new opportunity to explore. Then instead of being purely mining company, they actually branching out, become energy company. So it is an opportunity and it is happening, right? Okay, so how is it, Ibu Amalia? Is there any questions already? Is there any participant that face difficulties to pose questions?
Until now, there haven't noticed. Dr.
Okay. Well, I haven't refreshed my form, so I will check later. But anyway, please do not hesitate to start putting or posting your questions. And once again, the time may not be enough to answer all questions. So if you think you would like to share your email so that we can answer it by email, please do share it. It is not required. And once again, I'm not collecting your emails. Yeah, you just have to sign in, but your email will not be collected. You have to manually type in your email. Okay, so let's continue then to a more interesting part, which is the scenario itself. So I will start in stages. Provide first the paper-based scenario before going to showing you the AI use for the scenario itself. I already prepared one example. It's about a company that really depend on nature because the sector is agriculture. And so the scenario is about biodiversity loss and natural disasters on the agriculture sector related company. Now, you can read the scenario on the screen. I will just summarize it for you. So the company itself, over the past few decades, already faced a lot of escalating deforestations, and that will lead to degradation in soil quality. And when soil quality degraded, it means the plants and also water that help hold the quality of the soil and all of the related chemical that form the quality of the soil itself will be degraded. And slowly, the plant that depend directly to the soil will be degraded too. And by the end of the day, animals that depend on the plant will be endangered, and animals that depends on another animals will be also endangered. It is as simple as that. It's a cycle. So that's the condition faced by this company. And so the area itself is very prone to natural disasters. Ironically, it's not just about flooding, it's also about droughts. And when we have droughts, we have wildfires also by nature, not necessarily by human activity. So let's discuss what this company already pinpoint as their part of the scenario analysis for the loss of biodiversity. So when it comes to the loss of the biodiversity, the company says that yes, there are destruction of surrounding ecosystems as related to the wetlands, as related to the forest, and surely it will lead into the biodiversity loss. The direct biodiversity loss that they already detected will be related to local pollinator species. Once again, this is a unique case. It may not apply, and I don't think it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of approach when we are developing scenario analysis for natural disaster based on TNFD. Okay, so this company sees that bees and butterflies as the local pollinator species are important for the biodiversity in their area, and because of the degraded quality of the ecosystem, these pollinators are also endangered, and because their role in the environment that lead and related to the crop that the company is developing, it means the crop yields will also drop. Then it is a serious risk, because without these pollinators, the crop production will decrease. And so the main yields product of the company, in this case, their main yields are fruits, vegetables, and grains, will decrease too. So this is what they see as the risk as related to loss of biodiversity. This is first. The second one is related to soil degradation itself. So the company says that deforestation and poor land management practices leading to erosion and soil depletion, unfortunately, because erosion will erode the quality layer of the soil itself. And that will make the land where the company is operating less fertile. And that also means it will be even harder for the company to cultivate anything. So it means they have to have more efforts to even have the same yields as the previous years, for example. That's why they see it as a risk. And so they put it in the scenario analysis that the reduced quality of the soils will affect their crops growth, and so increase the costs. As the kind of operation that the company is doing is through collaborations with local farmers, it means farmers will start using artificial fertilizers or chemical-based fertilizers to quickly improve the quality of the soil itself. And it is risky because in the long term, that will not help the company to market their products, as the products might be tainted by too much of chemical fertilizers, in which they will face also by the end of the day regulatory risks as related to it. So it's a really vicious cycle for this company in terms of the soil degradation. Now, the company also see that water scarcity is a risk, because they already detected overexploitation of fresh water locally in the region. And with the loss of the wetlands, then the water flow will be reduced in the region, and that will create water scarcity. And when the water is scarce, that will affect the irrigation systems of the company. And that's leading to insufficient water for the crops. It can lead not just into lower yields, but also failure to harvest. So that's a complete disaster for the company itself. Now, with the erosion and the loss of or degrading quality of the ecosystem, the company also pinpoints the fact that they have another natural disaster risk, which is flooding in the area, not just because of the heavy rains, but also because of the, even if it is normal rains, because the soil can no longer hold the water, it means there is no absorption or little absorption, and the flooding that caused by these factors will damage the infrastructures in the area that they already built for their own operation and also for the community. And it can also damage their storage facilities and disrupting the whole agricultural supply chains and also the economy of the local farmers who are collaborating with the company. So once again, it is a very well spotted natural disaster risk as related to flooding. Now, ironically, the company also see that the company will face drought too. I said ironically because normally people think if we have flood, if we have so much water, how come we have drought, right? So it's a common thinking. I still hear it on and off, but yeah, we still can have drought. And the company, this agricultural company already highlights that there is drought risk, and they think that the drought will get longer and longer in terms of the period of its happening because of the climate change itself and the depletion of the natural water sources that will degrade also the availability of the water that they use to irrigate the crops. So their crop yields will be lower, and it means the harvest will be lower. Farmers who are collaborating with these companies will face financial losses because of the lower yields, and the companies by the end of the day, because they don't have enough yields, will also have less stable financial status or financial condition. Now, if you are thinking, where would that be related to SDGs? Well, it relates by the end of the day to the food security, at least local food security, where the company is operating itself. If it is not, but if the company is big enough, it can be related to even a more regional food security issue. For example, maybe half of the island itself, for example. So yeah, it's also another well-spotted risk of natural disasters that this company highlighted. Now, when there is drought, even by nature, there will be wildfires possible, very possible. And this company is saying that we do have that kind of risk because of the dry land, degraded land, and loss of the natural vegetation that can hold water to balance the humidity in the area and the dryness in the area. So when that happens, the fires will destroy the crops. And also, when that happens, the fires will certainly consume the infrastructure of the farms and endanger the personnel on the field itself. That's what they are worried about. And when it happens also, we cannot deny that wildfires will contribute to air pollution. We experience that, whether it is natural disasters or human-made, but the air pollution is there. And by the end of the day, these wildfires will affect crop growth because of the imbalance chemical in the soil and in the air, and also causing health problems that will further economic burdens for everyone, not just the companies, the stakeholders of the companies in the region itself. So when I'm discussing the risks that the company identified, I also already mentioned the business impact, but to put it in a more structured way, let's discuss it one by one. Let's start with the operational impact. So the company, as part of the scenario analysis of natural disasters based on TNFD, they state that the business impact first is the operational impact as related to the supply chain disruptions. It is because the sector itself relies on stable supply for the crops itself. And when there are natural disasters, that will interrupt the supply. And by the end of the day, of course, the production. It's not by the end of the day, it starts with the production. And by the end of the day, the rest of the supply chain. And this operational impact is also related to the increased cost from the higher cost to irrigate the crops. The irrigation cost for the crops and the soil remediation to increase the quality of the soil. And when it is related to wildfires, it will also related to higher costs to even protect the infrastructures of the farms and to protect their own personnel too. The insurance costs, everything, all business expenses will be increased due to the risk as related to the natural disasters that they already highlighted before. Now, there are further financial impacts that when we are talking about increased expenses and lower productivity, that will lead directly to revenue loss. Now, we do not talk about whether the market is shrinking or not in this discussion. The company here is talking about revenue loss directly related to the increased business expenses and lower yields. So the company relates the revenue loss directly to the facts of the risk that they already identified. They do not talk about shrinking market, things like that. They don't even relate it to that. So the revenue loss here is due to those things, and that translates into lower revenue. Insurance costs, like I already mentioned, can be also increased because of the natural disasters and to protect their infrastructures, to protect their personnel. They may also have to increase their insurance. And for insurers, when they see that the region is very prone to natural disasters, naturally, they can only offer higher premium than to those who are located to a less prone to natural disaster kind of area. So it will lead to a struggle to get the coverage of insurance that they hope to see. The higher deductibles will be something that's probable to happen. And that's the reason why this company put it as further financial impact as part of the scenario based on TNFD. Now, we also have non-financial related, not directly related to finance kind of impact, which is reputational impact. TCFD also have this, reputational impact, TNFD also has. But once again, the approach is exploratory under the TNFD. And so the company that we are talking about, they generally say that companies in our sector, in the agricultural sector, will face reputational risk as related to sourcing practices that can contribute to degraded environmental quality, such as deforestation or water overuse. So they relate reputational impact to the sector where they are in, that this is common, but although this is common, doesn't mean that we can ignore it because we are part of it. And they intend to mitigate it. So reputational impact, a lot of people will say that this is qualitative. I mean, reputational. How do you calculate reputation, right? But it can also lead into quantitative impact when it becomes litigations that lead into expenses, litigation expenses, and also the fines and everything else related to legal matters that will increase the expenses that the company will have to endure because of the negligence in sourcing their fertilizers, for example, or sourcing the farmers who will collaborate with them, for example. If these farmers are using chemical-based fertilizers heavily, probably they will increase the quality of the soil in the short term, but in the longer term, it will not. In fact, it will degrade it further. So this kind of practices will lead by the end of the day to the reputational problems as related to other part of their stakeholders. For example, customers who are really care about how you source my food, for example. So yeah. So by the end of the day, stakeholders, they detected that stakeholders may push greater transparency because of the qualitative nature of that on how companies actually manage this risk, and also avoid further impact that can actually relate to financial impact by the end of the day. Once again, if you have a question, you can just post it using the link provided by Ibu Amalia. And also, if you previously scanned the QR code, you can click open the link and you got to sign in. I'm not collecting your email, but if you want me to answer you by email, then you need to manually write down your email. So this company now already detected the risk, already detected the impacts of the natural disasters, and now it comes to the recommendations, what they think they can do in terms of the governance. Now, the company think that they should be able to manage their risk as related to biodiversity, but they have to establish a governance structure that allows them to focus on integrating environmental issues into the not only strategic level decision making, but also the operational level of decision making. We still see here and there that the tone of the top is already there, but it's not translatable into the operational level, whether there is a missing link there or there is no further communication down there. So the whole governance structure from the top to bottom, it has to be established in a way that it encourages the discussion and also the implementation on how environmental issues will be mitigated. And this got to happen in daily decision making. Not, once again, it's not just in the strategic level kind of decision making. That is first, in terms of governance. In terms of the strategy, the company will also disclose how the loss of the biodiversity that they mentioned before will be mitigated and how it will change their business strategy and their risk management. So here I give an example that how will the company adopt more sustainable farming practices by diversifying the crops to fit into the degrading water level, for example, and also sourcing from other areas that are less prone to natural disasters. So these are ways of changing the strategy of doing business as related to risks that they already identified under this scenario, natural disaster scenario based on TNFD. Now, the risk management itself, this is the interesting part, because a lot of risk management processes are still based on financial kind of risk management. Well, actually, financial risk management doesn't stand alone. It is impacted by the resources that the company is using to conduct their businesses. And if the company in any way is related to nature, and the case will be even more urgent if the company is really depending on natural resources, then the risk management got to definitely include the environmental risk management. And so the question is, how does the company will assess this risk and manage it? If they cannot prevent it because it's regional, then at least how are they going to manage it? Are they going to other areas that are less prone to natural disasters? Or do they have different ways of doing business that will help to reduce the speed of the degrading quality of the environment? So there are ways. Remember that the TNFD allows companies to build the scenarios analysis as stages. So you don't have to be a superpower or Superman by the moment you adopt the TNFD. You can start from anywhere, but you got to start. And it cannot be just promises, because I remind you that every qualitative statement is there to lead into quantitative facts or layers of information that can lead into a more informed decision making. And when we are talking about the risk management as related to environment, it is also a good practice to think about how will the company develop their plans to mitigate the potential disruptions due to predicted natural disasters. So I said predicted natural disasters because some natural disasters like flooding, drought, can relatively be predicted once you know the variables and once you allow yourself to have the time and effort to collect the local data, the data that are related to the region that you are operating. So this is called contingency plans for potential disruptions due to natural disasters. This is part of risk management. So risk management doesn't start and end with the identification of risk. It also includes the contingency plans also. What will you do? Now, part of the climate scenario or natural disaster scenario based on TNFD is the metrics and targets. So it doesn't stop with the strategy, governance, and the risk management. It also reaches into the more operational level in which we got to discuss the metrics and targets. So for the company that we talk about as an example, the metrics being used to assess exposure to nature, they use percentage of agricultural land affected by soil degradation. That's first. And another thing is that they develop metrics and targets as related to the reduction in biodiversity within the supply chain, and also the carbon footprint that can impact the environment where the farming operations are. So these are the metrics that they are using to assess how the natural disasters can actually impact their financial stability. Now, as I said before, as much as natural disasters cannot always be mitigated, doesn't mean that a company doesn't need to contribute into preventing the natural disasters from happening. Because, for example, deforestation, a company can always contribute in the restoration efforts. So that is exactly what's happening here. The company will set targets also to restore the habitats, the environment, and so they're hoping the quality of the environment where they're operating will be improving gradually. But once again, it is not a qualitative promise. It got to lead into quantitative science-based target on it. Now, I think based on the time, and we are actually well, we are slightly over. Let's have a break of 5 minutes because I also need to prepare to open the program. And after that, we will discuss very first one about the AI and how we are going to use it, and show you how using the software that I have, how we can practice it. It's a simple demonstration. It shouldn't take long. And so I should have time to answer some questions. So I will check also the link to the questions. Okay, so let's have a break of 5 minutes. Is that okay, Bu Amalia?
Sure, Dr. Dewi.
Okay, so see you.
See you. Let's have a break, 5 minutes break, Bapak Ibu. See you in 5 minutes.
But if you still have a questions that's related to the original questions, you can always repost it. So AI itself, when we are talking about the approaches being used or techniques used, we have what we call as a machine learning. So I'm presenting this with the intention to have a common ground with you. I believe that a lot of you already experience AI, but just to make the discussion structure, just to provide structure to the discussion. So let's discuss it a bit. Machine learning will be something that some people will call as a weak AI. Weak doesn't mean weak. It's still strong actually. It is called weak AI is because it doesn't generate the thinking by itself. You got to provide the model for the model being used as the base of the thinking. And you can do this through a supervised learning in which you train the system using data that you label. So it is more or less like you have variables and then you label it and you have data as related to the variable. So it's supervised learning and then you train the model. Unsupervised learning is that the AI itself will discover the pattern in the data without any pre-labeled outcomes, or reinforcement learning, in which the AI itself will learn to interact with the environment and receiving feedback. So these are still under machine learning. I'm not going to discuss it in detail because the focus is not about the different things of AI, different kinds of AI. It is just to provide structure for the discussion. We also have what we call in AI deep learning that's automatically detect pattern in large databases, usually useful like image recognition, speech recognition, for example. And we have also natural language processing kind of AI, which is usually very useful for language processing in terms of like translation. Sentiment analysis is also part of the natural language processing AI. And also question answering, like your chatbot, for example, the smart one. Now it comes to the governance of AI. This might also answer at least 2 questions as related to ensuring AI to be responsible and ethical. By the end of the day, when we are using AI, we got to understand that AI is not magic. We still can attach ourselves to the development and define the what the organization will set as the boundaries of being ethical and the standards, the boundary in developing it. And that can also be related to the national regulations or legal frameworks as related to AI. Every country now is in the race of developing it and still developing it, even for those who already have. AI also still have to have transparency and explainability in terms of how the model is actually developed. And by saying that how the model is actually developed, it will also pretty much related to not just Are we talking about regression? Are we talking about any other canonical analysis, or maybe some kind of a Monte Carlo simulation? It's not about all of this only, but it's also about why, and will the organization able to transparently explain it, and also how it can be justified to be used. So that's part of the AI transparency and explainability. And whether the AI itself is biased, developed with a biased kind of model, or whether it is fair, giving different perspectives to be part of the model itself. Now, that will also lead to the accountability and the liability of the AI itself when producing recommendations. Now, data governance is just like any other data governance as related to information system. Humans got to be the steward of this. It's not magic there, and it's not supposed to be magic. It has to have control. We still have to have our finger on it, but it not necessarily mean that you will regulate AI in such a way that it will not be able to develop further, because really it helps us a lot lately in our life by having AI, but to keep it responsible, transparent, and not biased and accountable. These are the things that we humans, we have to have our fingers on those issues. And so responsible AI got to be human-centered too. So humans got to be in the loop. So when we establish AI, are we establishing it just because we think that will speed up our business, but by the end of the day, we fire so many employees? The answer shouldn't be that. The answer should be reskilling for these employees about how they can use AI to upgrade the speed of their tasks and upgrade the quality of the delivery of their tasks, as related to, in our discussion, the scenario-based analysis based on TNFD. So these are the things. Now I'm going to stop sharing first, because I'm going to open another window. I'm going to show you very first one on how we can use AI. In this case, what I'm going to use is a machine learning, actually, at a machine learning stage, supervised one. Okay, let me open the window. So we will be a bit over, but we are also like started a bit just a few minutes late. So I think hopefully it will be okay for you to extend a little bit. Okay, going to open this and share it. Okay, and the presentation, the PowerPoint. Okay, give me just a bit of time. Yeah. Okay, so are you able to see my screen? It should be by now directed to a local site. Welcome to Earth Analytics, something like that. Confirm?
Yes, we can see that, Dr. Dewi.
Okay, okay. So I will quickly log in. This is just whatever login just to pass the Okay, so the 2FA verified. Okay, so in this AI, it is based on machine learning. So it's a supervised machine learning. So I'm going to tell you a bit about how the model is developed. It is developed based on 3 variables: water level, rainfall, and temperature, to predict drought rates. as related to our case study before, but I take for this presentation or just one part of it, the drought risk prediction. So I'll be the model is already trained with a good reliability level. So the data that I'm putting on is just any data, because by the end of the day, the AI should be able to handle it based on the model that we already trained. So don't worry about it. But in terms of data governance, they should be based on a survey, on a local data. So I think I also answered the question, is it possible to use AI for local data? The answer is very possible. What I'm doing now, you can use your own local data as long as it is verified on how you collect the local data to predict the drought in this case, then you're good to go with AI. But of course, you have to train your model in this. And if you have a question of that, you can always contact me about how you can train your local model for this. And the sources of the data can be various. It doesn't have to be one source. And so the software itself can be expanded. So if you want to talk about how you can expand the data, you can expand the software, you can also talk to me about this. I can help you with that. So even if you want to make the temperature minus, just in case Indonesia suddenly got winter, so you can do that, no problem. And if you think that, oh my God, we are approaching the end of the day, that the temperature raise until 100, we all die, probably you don't even have the chance to complete this, but just in case maybe you're in a bunker or something, you can also put it, because the temperature is allowed to be very high or very low. So bear with me a little bit more. I'm showing you that the data can be from any source of water resource. It doesn't have to be from one source. The temperature itself also can be a local data. So just a reminder, local data is very possible. In fact, you should start doing it. Don't wait for global data to enter. As long as you have the methodology transparent in collecting the data, and the quality of the data is verifiable, auditable, the traceability is there, I don't think you have a problem. You will have a problem with your AI model. But once again, if you have a problem, just contact me. My contact is in the presentation slide that Ibu Amalia will send together with the certificate, I think. Yeah, she will send it together with the certificate. Okay, bear with me. I set it for 30 days, so now we are on day 20, 10 more days. I'm doing it as fast as possible so as to catch up with the time that we have here. So even if you put 0, it's okay. Let's say you have a drought then. And no rain at all. Also okay, it's possible. The temperature can be very high as 37 if you want, or 40 or 50. Whatever temperature, extreme temperature that may happen. So the water level can be based on the source of a water resource that you are calculating and predicting. And this is very local data. Okay, we are approaching the end of the 30 days data. So once again, it's very possible to use localized data In fact, I'm the one who trained this model for today and develop a mock software to present to you that it is very possible to do all of this. Okay, let's predicate. So I put the numbers up there, all based on the model that I trained is high risk of draws. It just happened to be like that. I can also put it as rainfall 100 and see what happened. Predict. Yeah, it's still high risk based on the water level. So you can download the report. You can design it that way. So the daily risk will also be reported based on the model of the data that I trained already. And the end of conclusion, how many days of low risk, moderate risk, and high risk. In this case, all of the data that I entered just happened to be high risk. And so the recommendation is based on the risk level. If there is a high risk, then the recommendation will say that the drought risk was very prevalent. It's a drought alert. And the recommendation will change if it is more moderate or low risk. So this is just a mock software that I developed for this to show you that it is very possible to use local data. You don't have to wait. Actually, you can do this anytime as long as your model is very viable. It's a scientific base, and how you collect the data are scientific base. Then it should be okay. It can be presented. Now I'm going to answer also the one and last questions about the financial data. Will the impact of this, for example, this drought prediction, need to be actual financial loss? Well, if it is a prediction, you can also build a model that will connect the prediction of the drought to the prediction of how it will impact your financial stability. So in this case, although in the model you use historical data, the prediction can be a predicted financial stability. But when you report the scenario analysis, you got to clearly label it as a prediction. When you report it as a fact, as an actual condition, then it has to be based on historical data. So I hope that answer all of the questions submitted through the form. I recognize that there are some more questions coming in which it's okay, the form still open. And if you provide an email, then I will just email you. Okay, yeah, is that clear, Ibu Amalia?
Yes, Dr. Dewi.
Yeah, so those are all from me.
Okay.
As related to the demonstration. So I hope it will encourage companies in Indonesia and all of the entities that our participants are handling to start do this. Do not wait. Local data is not the problem here. Local data is very possible, and we are supposed to have local data.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dewi, for the presentation and the sharing. This is a new insight for us. Let me give a brief conclusion regarding this webinar. Okay, leveraging AI to create climate and nature-related disaster scenarios aligned with the TNFD framework. The TNFD would focus on how the degradation of the ecosystems and the loss of biodiversity. One of the characteristics of the TNFD is that it is versatile and adaptable, allowing the organization to customize analysis to their unique context instead of one-size-fits-all model. Also, the importance of the TNFD is integrating climate and nature consideration into corporate decision-making process and aligning financial risk management with nature positive outcomes. Also, in this topic, role of AI in environmental risk assessment, such as machine learning and predictive analytics, AI capacity to process largest data set, example, climate models, deforestation data, biodiversity assessment to create more accurate and dynamic risk scenario. By combining AI advanced capability with the TNFD reporting framework, companies can gain deeper insights into future environmental disruptions and better align their business strategies with long-term sustainability goals. Okay, I think it's enough from us. Is there any edit from the participants or enough too?
Well, from me, no, I think you already summarized the presentation very well, Ibu Amalia. And so I thank you for the opportunity. So if any of you want to contact me, you can contact me through the email address that I provide on my PowerPoint. And other than that, then I wish you have a good day for the rest of the day. And thank you for listening.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Dewi, once again. Thank you. Also, thank you for all the participants for joining us today. See you in the next ICSP workshop in December. I will close the Zoom then. Okay, have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.